Hi, my name is Dr. Jay Cardinale, and each week I teach a small group lesson based on Lifeway's Explore the Bible curriculum. So I encourage you to grab your copy of the scriptures and sit down and study God's Word with me as we learn what it means to follow Him. So I want to talk to you about mousetraps. Say you go to the store and you buy a mousetrap, you bring it home and you put it underneath your sink or wherever you got your mouse problem, and you walk away. You come back the next day to check your trap and there's no mouse, and say, okay, well, it may take a couple days, so you come back and you check again and no mouse. So you get on the phone and you call the mousetrap hotline. You get an expert and you say, hey, I set a mousetrap and I have no mouse. And so he begins to ask you questions. He might ask you, say, well, did you put any bait on that trap? Did you put any cheese on there? And you go, no. And he goes, well, you got to have bait in your trap if you're going to catch your mouse. Well, today we're going to talk about some people caught in a trap. They've been baited. They've been baited by their desires and their wants. They're baited by sin, and they're going to step into a trap. And let's see how they get out of it today when we look at the life of Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau. We got to bring ourselves up to date, though. You see, last week we looked at a man who was sent to find Isaac a wife, and he comes back with Rebekah. Well, they get married, and years pass, and they have twins. They have Jacob and Esau. Really, it should be Esau first because Esau's the older child and Jacob's the younger child. But while they were still yet to be born, God came to the parents and he said, hey, let me tell you something. That the younger son, he's going to rule over the older son. I know it's not normal, but that's what's going to happen. So the boys are born and they couldn't be more different. Esau's a hairy, rugged outdoorsman and Jacob's more of an inside kind of guy. Well, some time passes, and one day Jacob's at the house, and Esau comes in. Esau's been out hunting. He's tired. He needs some food. So he says, Jacob, give me some food. Jacob says, I'll give you some food, but you got to sell me your birthright. So he's like, fine, whatever, just give me some food. So we see here that Jacob is cunning, and Esau is flippant. So time passes again, and we've gone a long way. Isaac is old. The dad, he's old. He's getting where he can't see really well. And he decides one day, I'm going to bless Esau, the older son, even though God said the younger son is going to rule over him. So he calls in the older son, Esau, and says, Esau, go and go hunting and bring back some food for me, and I want you to make me dinner. And when you make me dinner, I'm going to bless you. So around the corner is Rebekah. And Rebekah hears this. And Rebekah calls Jacob in. Now hold up. What's going on? We have a mom and a dad who are opposed. You see, dad loves Esau. Mom loves Jacob. So Jacob's going to be blessed by his mom in a deceiving kind of way. You see, she's going to tell him, look, while Esau's out, I'm going to make some food. You dress up like Esau, and you go in there to your blind dad, pretend to be him, and you get his blessing. This is all messed up. We've got a family that is dysfunctional beyond belief. So they set out to have this plan go forward. So let's see what happens when Jacob goes in with the food to his blind elderly father. Look at Genesis chapter 27, verse 18 through 20. When he came to his father, he said, my father. And he answered, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob replied to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how did you ever find it so quickly, my son? He replied, because the Lord your God made it happen for me. Talk about lying. This son is lying like crazy to his father. He represents himself. He says, I'm Esau. He represents what he's done. He said, eat some of my game. He represents that God was even involved. He said, oh, your God made it possible for me to do this. And so he's misrepresenting himself. In our culture today, people misrepresent themselves all the time to get what they want. I want you to take a moment, just think of some ways that people misrepresent themselves to receive a blessing. In our culture today, people are focused on themselves, what they want, their ideas. What they want must be best. What I think must be right because I think it. So to get what they want, to get their ideas accepted, they misrepresent themselves. Man, they'll pretend to be somebody they're not. They'll tell a little white lie here about something they've done. They'll fudge on the truth to get this. Also, they receive the blessing from someone else, so they can take something that's not theirs. That's what Jacob is doing here. Jacob is simply misrepresenting himself to take something that's not his to take, because Jacob is taking what Isaac wanted to give to Esau. Now, we have to stop for a second and remember, God had a plan. God always intended Jacob to get the blessing. God always intended for Jacob to rule over Esau. And we're going to talk more about why that's true in a little bit. But the point is, people are going about this all the wrong way. The dad, Isaac, he said, I don't care what God said. I'm going to bless Esau. Rebekah says, I'm going to help God out a little bit. And Jacob's like, I'm going along with this because I want this. I'm going to misrepresent myself to get what I want. So in the process, he's fooling his dad. And I want us to look a little closer at what that means to be fooling his dad, misrepresenting himself to this elderly blind man. So let's look at the next set of verses. Look at verses 21 through 27. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come closer so I can touch you, my son. Are you really my son Esau or not? So Jacob came closer to his father Isaac. When he touched him, he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. Again he asked, are you really my son Esau? And he replied, I am. Then he said, bring it closer to me and let me eat some of my son's game so that I can bless you. Jacob brought it closer to him and he ate. He brought him wine and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, please come closer and kiss me, my son. So he came closer and kissed him. When Isaac smelled his clothes, he blessed him and said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. Do you remember learning about the five senses? Sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch. Well, Rebekah and Jacob have covered their bases. Man, they've got it all down. He can't see, so they didn't worry about that. So when it comes to feeling, well, let's put some fur on Jacob's hand and let's cover it up. Well, smell. The soup smells good, and Jacob smells like Esau. Hearing, well, they can't do much about that. So if you notice, Jacob kind of backs off on the conversation a little bit. Are you him? I am, sure, yeah, not saying a lot. So they cover their bases with all of these different senses. But I want to think about Isaac for a second. Think about his confusion. We see first his initial confusion. He says, how did you go out and find this so quickly? You see, Esau left and Jacob shows up with food. It would have taken longer to go out, hunt, kill, dress, cook dinner than it really did. So there's initial confusion, like, I'm not sure what's going on. Then there's his sensory confusion. And we talked about this. He doesn't sound like Esau. He feels like him, but I don't know. Something's a little weird here. I can't see, so I'm confused. My senses aren't really working all that well. Then finally, we have the waning confusion. He's convinced because he calls his son closer. He probably does that so he can actually smell him. Calls him closer and he says, you do smell like Esau. You're him. You see, what we have here is we have a young man tricking an elderly man. We have a person taking advantage of someone else's disability to take advantage and get what they want. Don't we see that in culture? Don't we see in culture ways that people prey on the elderly? And this might not be something you would think about in terms of a small group lesson, but it's important because we are called to take care of those who are older, those who aren't really functioning as best as they used to. You see, he's tricking this man. In our society, we need to be careful. We need to help our older people and just us in general to be aware that people are going to misrepresent themselves. When they call on the phone, they say, you got to decide now. When they call on the phone, they say, I'm so-and-so, and you need to give me this information, this personal information. Or when someone lets you know that this is too good to be true, well, it probably is. Now, we think about this in terms of scams on the phone, the text, the email, and all this, but it happens in our daily lives as well. Maybe it's a relation. Maybe it's a friend, and they're scamming you, and you don't know it, or trying to scam an elderly person in your life, and they don't realize it. We need to step up and need to help that not happen. I'm not saying be paranoid and think everybody's out to get you, but I'm saying check your facts and be careful with what you tell people. So we see in all these ways, sight, hearing, touch, feeling, all these things, smell, they put Jacob in a place where he can trick his father. And his father is at a disability, at a disadvantage. So let's look and let's see what happens next when the father decides to bless the older son, but actually it's the younger son. Look at Genesis chapter 27, 28 through 30. May God give to you from the dew of the sky and from the richness of the land, an abundance of grain and new wine. May people serve you and nations bow and worship to you. Be master over your relatives. May your mother's sons bow and worship to you. Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had left the presence of his father, Isaac, his brother Esau arrived from his hunting. Now again, this is what God always wanted for Jacob. But everybody's going about it the wrong way. The father, he says, I'm doing things my way. I'm going to bless Esau. The mom says, I'm going to help God out and trick the father. The son goes along with it to get what he wants because he's cunning like he was with his flippant older brother earlier in life. But we see here that there's the blessing, and this blessing is real because it's the blessing that God gave to Abraham, it's the blessing that God gave to Isaac, and it's the blessing that God wanted to give to Jacob the right way, but he gets it the wrong way. So what's the blessing? Well, first, it's a blessing of land. This land that he's been promised, it's the land of Canaan. Later, the generations are going to settle there, and the land's going to produce for them well. The dew is a picture of God's blessing in an arid land, but it's also a blessing of a people. God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob that a great nation is going to come from them. Many people are going to come from them. Kings are going to come from them. Nations are going to come from them. It's a blessing of land, a blessing of people, and it's a blessing of a curse. That sounds weird, but what God's saying is, I'm going to take care of you. Those who are on your side, I'm on their side. Those who are against you, well, they're going to face my judgment, my curse. And so God blesses Jacob through his father Isaac, even though he didn't realize what he was doing when he blessed Jacob instead of Esau. So I want us to consider again this family, this dysfunctional family who's set their own traps and they're caught in a trap. This family, they don't get any better, to be honest, for a long, long time because Esau comes home and Esau hears about this. You know what he says? He says, I'm going to kill him. I'm done with him. And I think this can show us why God initially picked Jacob in the first place. You kind of wonder, what's going on here? Why is God picking Jacob over Esau? Well, Esau's true character comes out here. Jacob's a trickster. But Esau, he's got murderous intentions. Hebrews talks about this. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16 says, and make sure that there isn't any immoral or irreverent people like Esau, who sold his birthright in exchange for a single meal. The word immoral references sexual immorality. The word irreverent references worldliness, godlessness, irreverence. So we see that God chose Jacob because God knew who Esau was on the inside. And Esau's true character comes out when Jacob tricks him, when Jacob steals from him. Again, Jacob's not a great guy at this point. But in the future, God's going to work on Jacob. God's going to talk to him. God's going to wrestle with him. And Jacob's going to come back, and Jacob is finally going to find his way into God's plan, God's story. And he's going to be the father of the nation. And so we see here that this dysfunctional family set their own traps. They messed up. We need to be careful that we don't set traps for ourselves, that we don't get ahead of God like Rebekah did. We need to be careful to take care of those who are disadvantaged or disabled so that they don't get taken advantage of by other people. And we need to make sure that we are not people who misrepresent ourselves and take advantage of other people ourselves, because that can always be temptation, because like the world, sometimes we want it our way. We want our desires, and we'll do what it takes to get them. So let's be careful to not act like this dysfunctional family. Go out this week and take care of people and tell people the truth about who you are. Tell people the truth about Jesus and represent him well. Be light in the darkness. I'll see you next week.